If someone had told me respect could feel bigger than any tip, I'd have argued. My name is Maya Alvarez. I'm 27, and I never imagined that taking a housekeeping job at a lakefront mansion in Seattle's Madison Park would completely change my life. I'd been in the Emerald City only 3 months, having left a suffocating relationship in Milwaukee and the predictable life I'd always known. I needed a fresh start, a chance to find out who I really was, and this job felt like my opportunity to build something new. The residence where I started working was breathtaking, a historic limestone mansion with 6 bedrooms. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington, a temperature-controlled wine cellar, and an indoor garden that seemed lifted straight from a European estate. Everything screamed wealth and privilege. But what struck me most wasn't the magnificence of the place. It was the profound loneliness that permeated every perfectly appointed room. If you love stories about real love that breaks all the rules, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, so you won't miss any new stories. And drop a like if you believe love knows no boundaries. Victoria Hartwell was 53 years old and one of Seattle's most influential real estate developers. Her firm's name appeared on luxury high-rises throughout the Loop and beyond. In those first days, she barely acknowledged my existence. She'd pass me in hallways with her phone permanently attached to her ear, always discussing acquisitions, zoning approvals, investment portfolios. Her husband, Daniel, appeared even less frequently, constantly traveling for business. According to Mrs. Whitaker, the elderly cook who'd worked there for 2 decades. That marriage died years ago, dear. Mrs. Whitaker confided during my second week. They live like roommates in a hotel. He has his wing, she has hers. They maintain appearances because dissolving their business empire would be impossibly complicated. Everything they've built is intertwined. I simply nodded, focused on doing my job impeccably. It wasn't my place to judge these people's lives, but I confess I felt a deep sadness cleaning that enormous house and realizing how empty it was of genuine connection. There were photographs everywhere, Victoria and Daniel at charity galas, skiing in Whistler, posing at ribbon-cutting ceremonies, always smiling, but the smiles never reached their eyes. Catalog smiles for a catalog life. Everything began shifting in my 4th week. It was a Wednesday morning and I was dusting the library when Victoria came in earlier than usual. She stopped upon seeing me, observing my work for several seconds. For the first time, she wasn't on her phone. "Good morning, Maya," she said, and her voice sounded different, softer, almost uncertain. "Good morning, Mrs. Hartwell," I replied, pausing what I was doing. "Have you had breakfast?" The question surprised me. We looked at each other and I noticed she seemed exhausted, not physically, but emotionally, as if carrying an invisible weight that was crushing her. "Not yet, ma'am. I usually eat after finishing the first floor." "Join me for breakfast." Mrs. Whitaker made those amazing blueberry scones. I hate eating alone. That's how it started. Shared breakfast that became routine. Victoria began adjusting her schedule to be home on Wednesday and Friday mornings, the days I worked. We talked about everything and nothing simultaneously. She told me about the pressure of managing a company with 300 employees. About being a woman in a male-dominated industry that constantly questioned her authority. About the loneliness of having everything yet having no one. I shared my story growing up in a working-class Puerto Rican family. My controlling ex-boyfriend who'd systematically isolated me from friends and family. The courage it took to leave with just a suitcase and start over alone in a new city. Victoria listened with genuine attention. Something I hadn't received in years. "You're brave, Maya," she said one morning, her hazel eyes fixed on mine. "Most people spend entire lifetimes in situations that destroy them because they're terrified of change. You chose your freedom. That's remarkable." My heart accelerated. There was something in the way she looked at me that left me breathless. An intensity that transcended simple admiration between employer and employee. Stay with this story until the end because what happens next will surprise you. Comment below what you think is going to happen. Weeks passed and our connection deepened. Victoria started seeking me out during the day. Even when working from her home office, she'd invent excuses, needed help finding a file, wanted my opinion on fresh flowers for the foyer, asked if I'd seen her reading glasses. But I knew these were just pretexts to be near each other. I found reasons to be close to her, too. I'd take extra time organizing her office, ask her advice about which art books to dust first in the library, request her help reaching high shelves, even when the stepladder was right there. There was a growing tension between us. Unspoken but palpable. Our gazes lingered longer than appropriate. When she handed me something, our fingers would touch and neither of us pulled away quickly. The air felt charged with electricity whenever we occupied the same space. Mrs. Whitaker noticed. "Be careful, girl," she warned me one afternoon. "I know it's not my business, but that woman is married and you're young with your whole life ahead. Don't get yourself into trouble." I wanted to heed her advice. I really did. But how do you ignore something that feels so intense, so undeniably real? For the first time since I could remember, I felt seen, valued, desired in a way that went beyond the physical. Victoria made me feel intelligent, interesting, important, and I saw the same thing in her eyes, a hunger that had nothing to do with food, a thirst no water could quench. It was on a rainy Monday in late autumn when everything changed definitively. Victoria had mentioned during breakfast that Daniel would be in San Francisco for 12 days meeting with international investors. He left on Thursday, and by the weekend, the tension between Victoria and me was unbearable. The following Monday, I arrived to work at 8 a.m. as always. The house felt too quiet. Mrs. Whitaker had Mondays off, so it was just Victoria and me. I began my routine on the first floor, but my mind was elsewhere. Where was Victoria? Still sleeping, working. Around 10:30, I headed upstairs to clean the bedrooms. I knocked on Victoria's master suite door and her voice invited me in. I entered and began working, vacuuming the Persian rugs, polishing the mirrors, straightening books on her nightstand. Victoria was on a video conference in her private office within the suite, gesturing emphatically, and discussing market projections, risk assessments, competitive advantages. I tried to be silent, but I could feel her gaze on me periodically. The meeting stretched nearly 90 minutes. When it finally ended, I heard Victoria exhale deeply, that kind of sigh heavy with frustration and exhaustion. She stood from her desk chair and pressed her fingers to her temples. "Almost lost a $40 million deal because of one incompetent project manager," she said, more to herself than to me. "Sometimes I wonder why I still do this. For what? For whom?" I stopped working and looked at her. She seemed smaller, suddenly vulnerable. This wasn't the powerful developer who commanded boardrooms and closed 8-figure deals. This was just a tired woman, depleted, aching for something she couldn't name. "You're tense," I said gently. "You should rest." She looked at me and something shifted in her expression. "I'm extremely tense. My whole body hurts. My shoulders, my neck, my back. I feel like I'm carrying the weight of the world." There was silence. Our eyes met and held. My heart pounded so violently I was certain she could hear it. "I'm going to take a bath," she said finally, though her eyes never left mine. "A hot bath to see if I can relax," I nodded, returning my focus to dusting. But every fiber of my being was aware of Victoria moving through the suite. Entering the bathroom, leaving the door slightly ajar. I heard water begin filling the tub. I continued cleaning mechanically, but my mind was elsewhere. I imagined the water rising around Victoria's body, steam filling the marble bathroom, her hands sliding soap across her skin. I shook my head, trying to banish these thoughts. "You work for her, Maya. Control yourself." But then the water stopped. I heard movement in the bathroom and Victoria appeared in the doorway wearing nothing but a white towel. Her dark hair damp and loose around her shoulders, droplets of water sliding down her neck and collarbone. She was stunning, elegant, confident, sensual in a way that completely stole my breath. We stared at each other. Time seemed to stop. I should have looked away, returned to work, left the room, but I couldn't move. "Maya," she said, and her voice came out husky, hesitant. "I need to ask you something." "Yes." My own voice sounded strange, loaded with emotion I could no longer hide. She took several steps toward me. She was so close now that I could smell her bath oil, see the water droplets on her chest. Notice how her eyes had darkened with unmistakable desire. Would you give me a massage?" The words came out almost as a whisper. "I know it's not part of your job. I know I'm being completely inappropriate, but I have this terrible tension in my shoulders, my neck, and I need your hands on me." That last phrase hung in the air between us, loaded with meanings that went far beyond a simple massage. "Mrs. Hartwell, I don't know if, Victoria," she cut in gently. "Just Victoria. And if you don't want this, I understand. We can pretend I never asked and go back to normal." But if any part of you wants this even a fraction as much as I do, please don't reject me. Don't say no. My heart pounded. Every rational reason not to do this lined up in my head. She was married, my employer, 26 years older. I could lose my job. She could regret it. 1,000 ways to go wrong. But when I met her eyes, saw the vulnerability there, the hope, I felt those reasons thin to paper. Lie down, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. Victoria searched my face, as if confirming she'd heard right, then moved to the edge of the four-poster and settled on her stomach. The room was quiet enough to hear the rain ticking against the windows. I sat beside her, palms slightly trembling. I had never crossed a line like this, never touched someone in a moment so charged. I set my hands on her shoulders, the warmth of her skin meeting my tentative pressure. She let out a long breath, tension loosening beneath my fingers. "You can press harder," she murmured. "Don't be afraid. I trust you." Those two words shifted something inside me. I worked slowly, carefully, following the knots of stress along her shoulders and back, listening for every small cue in her breathing. "This can't happen unless we're clear," I said quietly. "About what it means. About limits. About tomorrow." She turned her head just enough for me to see her profile. "I know," she whispered. "I'm not here to make you responsible for my choices. I'm here because," she faltered, then finished, "because I feel more honest with you than I have in years." The air between us felt like a held note, uncertain, true. The massage became something else, not just easing muscles, but a conversation without words, careful and mutual. I paused, and she reached back, fingertips brushing mine in silent answer. "Victoria," I said, "are you sure?" "Yes." A breath. "Only if you are." I nodded. The rest of the evening unfolded gently, deliberately, two people choosing the same moment, with care and consent, and the understanding that everything would need to be faced in the daylight that followed. Outside, the lake kept its steady hush against the shore, and inside, we let the quiet carry us forward without saying more than we had to. My hands moved to her neck, massaging the base of her skull, fingers threading through her damp hair. Victoria turned her head slightly, and I saw that her eyes were closed, an expression of pure bliss on her face. "That feels incredible," she murmured. "It's been so long since someone touched me like this. With care, with attention, like I actually matter." My heart constricted. Without thinking, I leaned down and kissed her shoulder softly. It was an instinctive gesture, natural, but the effect was electric. Victoria slowly turned over, facing me, the towel falling away completely. We looked at each other. There were no more disguises, no more excuses, no more pretending. The desire was there, naked and raw between us. "Maya, if we do this, there's no going back," Victoria said, her hand reaching for my face, fingers tracing the line of my jaw. "My life will get complicated. Yours, too. Are you sure?" In response, I leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle at first, almost hesitant, our lips learning each other, but then Victoria deepened the kiss, her hand going to the back of my neck, pulling me closer, and all hesitation dissolved. The kiss became more intense, more urgent. Years of loneliness, of repressed desire, of unmet needs. Everything exploded in that moment. Victoria pulled me onto the bed, our bodies intertwining, my hands exploring her skin, her lips tracing a path down my neck. I lost track of time. I don't know if we were there for minutes or hours. I only know that for the first time in my life, I felt completely alive, completely present, completely connected with another person. Victoria touched me with a tenderness that made me want to cry, but also with a passion that ignited every nerve ending in my body. When we finally separated, breathless, satisfied, the afternoon sun was lower in the sky. We'd spent hours together in that bed, discovering each other, sharing an intimacy that went far beyond the physical. Lying side by side, Victoria held my hand, interlacing our fingers. "What did we just do?" she whispered. But there was no regret in her voice. Only wonder. "We did what we've wanted to do for weeks," I replied, turning on my side to face her. "Do you regret it?" Victoria looked into my eyes, and the intensity of what I saw there left me breathless. "I regret many things in my life, Maya. Building an empire, but losing myself in the process. Staying in a dead marriage for convenience. Letting years pass without feeling what I feel right now. But this," she kissed my forehead softly. This I don't regret, even knowing it's going to complicate everything. We lay there in silence for a while, just existing together, savoring the moment before reality came demanding payment. But reality always demands payment. And I knew we'd have to face it soon. Daniel returns in 11 days, Victoria said as if reading my thoughts. 11 days before I have to go back to pretending, to playing the role of devoted wife. And us? The question escaped before I could stop it. Victoria propped herself up on her elbow, looking at me with a seriousness that frightened me. I don't know, Maya. I can't promise you anything beyond these days. My life is complicated. A divorce would destroy the business I've spent 30 years building. Daniel and I are partners. Our assets are so entangled, it would be a legal nightmare to separate everything. I felt my heart sink. So, this is just what? An affair? Something to entertain yourself while your husband's away? No. Victoria sat up abruptly, taking my face in her hands. No, Maya, it's not that. I don't know what this is, but I know it's real. I know you make me feel things I haven't felt in decades. I know when I look at you, I see possibilities I thought had died inside me. But I also know I can't just blow everything up without thinking. I have responsibilities, employees who depend on me, a legacy I've built. I understood what she was saying, but it hurt. It hurt because for the first time I'd opened myself completely to someone and that person was telling me she couldn't really have me. So, what do we do? I asked, my voice coming out small. We have 11 days, Victoria said, kissing my lips gently. 1 day to be ourselves. No masks, no lies. And after, we'll see. I won't ask you to be my secret mistress, Maya. You deserve more than that. But I also can't promise you a fairy tale ending. The only thing I can promise is honesty and that I'll try to find a path where neither of us has to lose ourselves. It wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was honest and I appreciated that. So I nodded, pulling her back into my arms, deciding to treasure those 11 days and deal with the consequences later. That evening, Victoria ordered deep dish pizza from Cedar and Stone Pizzeria, and we ate it in bed, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at silly things, sharing childhood stories. It was surreal. Hours before, she'd been my untouchable employer, distant and formal. Now she was here, wearing my t-shirt, eating pizza with her hands because she didn't want to get up for plates. You know, I've broken all my rules today, Victoria said, sipping wine. I prided myself on being professional, maintaining clear boundaries. And then you showed up with your honest eyes and genuine smile, and all my rules went out the window. Sorry for messing up your organized life, I said, smiling. Don't apologize, she replied, getting serious. My organized life was a beautiful prison. You showed me there's still a door out. I don't know yet if I'll have the courage to walk through it, but at least now I know it exists. We slept together that night, intertwined, and for the first time in months, I didn't have nightmares about my ex, about the horrible things he'd said, about feeling small and worthless. In Victoria's arms, I felt safe, valued, loved. The following days were the most intense of my life. During the day, I tried to maintain appearances, doing my work as a housekeeper, cleaning the house, organizing. Mrs. Whitaker returned from her day off and looked at me with a mixture of concern and knowing. She understood. She didn't say anything, but she knew. At night, Victoria and I were together. We cooked, watched classic films at her private screening room, talked until dawn, made love. It was like living in a bubble separate from the real world where only the two of us existed. Victoria showed me a side of herself no one knew. She told me about building her company from scratch, starting as a junior analyst at a commercial real estate firm and climbing her way to founding her own development company. She spoke about her conservative family who thought a woman should marry well rather than build her own empire. About how she married Daniel because he was her only ally in the beginning, but how the marriage transformed into a cold partnership over the years. Sometimes I wonder if I ever truly loved Daniel, she confessed on our 6th night together. Or if I just needed a partner to survive in that brutal masculine world. He gave me stability, initial financial backing, credibility, but passion, real connection. We never had that. And now, I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. Now I know the difference, she said, looking deep into my eyes between convenient partnership and real connection. And I don't know if I can go back to pretending I don't know. But time, merciless, kept passing. The 11 days were ending. Daniel would return in 2 days, and we still hadn't discussed what would happen after. It was on the morning of the 10th day that things started unraveling. I was in the kitchen with Mrs. Whitaker, having coffee before starting work, when I heard Victoria's voice in the study, talking on the phone. Her voice was strained, tense. "No, Daniel, I haven't touched anything in your office." "What do you mean it's missing?" "It must be somewhere else." "Yes, I'll look." "Okay, see you tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" My heart sank. Daniel was coming back a day early. I rushed to the study where Victoria stood by the window, phone still in hand. "He's coming back tomorrow," she said without turning around. "There's an issue with some contracts and he needs to handle it personally." We stood in silence, the weight of reality crashing down on us like a ton of bricks. "Victoria," I began, but didn't know what to say. She turned and there were tears in her eyes. "I'm not ready, Maya. I'm not ready for you to go back to being just my housekeeper, to pretend these 10 days didn't happen. To return to that empty life." I crossed the study and embraced her, feeling her tremble in my arms. The powerful Victoria Hartwell, who commanded board meetings with an iron fist and closed 9-figure deals, stood there vulnerable and frightened. "Then don't pretend," I said. "End your marriage. Own who you are, what you want. It's not that simple." She pulled away, running her hands through her hair. "The business, Maya, everything I've built. If I divorce, especially if the reason comes out, do you understand how much that could cost? How much does it cost to pretend you're not dying inside?" I shot back. My own frustration building. "How much does it cost to live a lie every single day? Victoria, you told me that staying with my abusive ex was destroying me. That I had courage to choose my freedom. Where's your courage?" It was the wrong thing to say. I saw pain flash across Victoria's face, followed by anger. "You don't understand anything, Maya." She exploded. "You have nothing to lose. I have a company with 300 employees depending on me. I have 30 years of work invested in this. You think it's easy to throw all that away for what? For a 10-day relationship?" The words hit me like a physical blow. "Is that what we are to you? Just a 10-day relationship, something disposable?" "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant." My voice was breaking now. "I'm the housekeeper, Victoria. The convenient fling while your husband was away. When real life shows up, I go back to my place." "Right. Maya, don't." But I was already leaving the study. Tears starting to fall. I ran upstairs to my small room on the 3rd floor, a modest space that had been mine since I started working there, and locked the door. I threw myself on the narrow bed, sobbing. What had I expected? That she'd leave everything for me? A 27-year-old housekeeper with no money, no status, nothing to offer except love? I'd been naive. So absurdly naive. There was knocking at the door. "Maya, please open up. Let's talk." "Go away, Mrs. Hartwell." I emphasized the formality deliberately. "I need to remember my place." There was silence on the other side. Then I heard footsteps retreating. I spent the rest of the day locked in my room, ignoring more knocking, ignoring Victoria's text messages, ignoring Mrs. Whitaker calling me for lunch. I needed time to process, to understand how I'd been stupid enough to fall in love with someone completely unattainable. Because that's what it was. I realized I'd fallen for Victoria, completely, irrevocably, and that made everything hurt more. When night settled, I finally left my room. The house was still. I padded into the kitchen for water and nearly jumped when I saw Victoria at the table, a cold cup of tea in front of her, staring into space. "You scared me," I said. She looked up. Her eyes were swollen, rimmed red. "I've been waiting for you," she murmured. "I figured you'd come down eventually, for water, something." I filled a glass in silence, torn between retreating and staying. "Sit," Victoria asked, voice worn thin. 5 minutes. Let me explain." I hesitated, then took a chair, leaving space between us. "You're right," she began. "I'm being a coward. I'm letting fear make my choices. But Maya, it's easy to talk about courage when you've already lost everything and you're rebuilding. It's different when you have something to lose, when your decision touches hundreds of other lives." "I understand responsibility," I said evenly. "What I don't understand is how you live a lie. How you sleep beside someone you don't love, smile through charity galas, keep a facade that's choking you. Victoria, that isn't living. It's enduring." "I know," she whispered, tears falling again. "I know. And I hate it. But I'm terrified, Maya, of disappointing people, of failing, of you seeing me for what I am, a 53-year-old woman who's scared and confused, and then leaving. My chest tightened. I rose and knelt beside her chair. Victoria, look at me. I waited until her gaze locked on mine. I didn't fall for a developer or a bank account. I fell for the woman who laughs when she burns the scones because she was too busy kissing me. The woman who cries at romantic movies and blames allergies. The woman who makes me feel enough, exactly as I am. You fell in love? She asked, wonder and hope threading her voice. Completely, I admitted. Too fast, maybe. Different worlds, definitely. But it's true. She pulled me into her lap, arms tight, face buried at my neck. We stayed like that, breathing, holding. I'm in love with you, too, she whispered against my skin. And that terrifies me, because I can't go back to before. It means I have to make hard choices. But I promise you this, I will not ask you to be my secret. Either you're truly mine, or I won't put you in something that will break you. What does that mean? I asked. It means I need time. Time to put things in order, to talk to Daniel, to separate without burning the business to the ground. It could take months, maybe a year. It won't be simple or quick. But if you can wait, if you can trust me, I will find a way. I wanted to believe. God, I wanted to. And tomorrow, I said quietly, Daniel comes home. What happens to us? Victoria drew a steadying breath. Tomorrow you're officially my employee again. In front of him, we're professional. But in the coming weeks, I'll start moving pieces, lawyers, accountants, options, and I'll be honest with Daniel. He deserves to hear that the marriage is over. Even if I don't go into details about you, this could go very wrong. I warned. I know. But the alternative is losing you. And that's not an option I can accept. We spent our last night together before Daniel's return. Not making love this time. Just holding each other, memorizing each other's touch, strengthening our connection for the difficult days ahead. Daniel arrived the next day, bringing with him the reality we'd kept at bay. He was a tall man, silver-haired, distinguished-looking, with a natural air of authority, polite to me, but distant. I was just part of the staff, irrelevant in his world. I returned to my housekeeper routine as if nothing had changed. I cleaned rooms, avoided crossing paths with Victoria more than necessary. Kept my eyes down when Daniel was around. But inside, I was falling apart. Watching Victoria play the role of wife was torture. She'd serve Daniel coffee, ask about his trip, smile at the right moments. It was all very civilized, very polite, very fake, and I hated every second of it. At night, when everyone was asleep, my phone would vibrate with messages from Victoria. This is harder than I imagined. Seeing you and not being able to touch you is killing me. Spoke to a lawyer today. It's complicated, but not impossible. It's going to take time. I love you. Don't give up on me. I always responded, but doubts were starting to grow. What if she could never break free? What if I was wasting my time waiting for something that would never happen? 3 weeks passed in this suffocating dynamic. Victoria and Daniel maintained the facade of the perfect couple while she worked behind the scenes to legally separate, but the process was slow, complicated by decades of intertwined assets and businesses. And then everything exploded. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was organizing the library when I heard raised voices coming from Victoria's study. She and Daniel were arguing, something rare in that cold but polite marriage. You're hiding something, Victoria. I feel it. Daniel's voice echoed. These meetings with lawyers, the whispered phone conversations. What's going on? Nothing that concerns you. Victoria's voice was firm, but I knew her well enough to detect the nervousness underneath. How does it not concern me? We've been married 26 years. We're business partners. Everything you do affects me. You only care about the business, Daniel. When was the last time you asked how I feel? When did you show interest in me as a person beyond the convenient business partner? Don't start with that emotional talk now. We have an arrangement, a partnership. It's always worked this way. Well, maybe I'm tired of that arrangement. Victoria's voice rose. Maybe I want more from life than a cold partnership disguised as a marriage. There was tense silence. Then Daniel's voice came lower, more dangerous. There's someone else, isn't there? You're having an affair. My heart stopped. I stood frozen in the library, the feather duster motionless in my hand. That's none of your business, Victoria responded. But the lack of denial was revealing. Who is it? Daniel demanded. Some business associate, some client. God, Victoria, do you know the scandal this could cause? It's not a scandal if we divorce civilly. That's why I've been talking to lawyers. I want a divorce, Daniel. I want my freedom. The sound of something slamming. A door. A desk I couldn't identify. Have you lost your mind? Our lives are completely intertwined. A divorce now in the middle of 3 developments in progress. The investors will panic. The market will lose confidence. Then we'll find a way to minimize the damage. But I'm not living this lie anymore. Heavy footsteps. Daniel must have been pacing the study. How long? How long has this betrayal been happening? It's not betrayal to cheat on something that's been dead for years. Victoria retorted. Our marriage is a sham, Daniel. And you know it as well as I do. That doesn't give you the right to. He stopped abruptly. Then his voice came in a different tone, one of realization. It's someone here, isn't it? That's why you've been home more, acting different. My God, it's someone from the house. My blood froze. Daniel, don't. It's the driver. The gardener? No, you barely speak to them. So who, Mrs. Whitaker? Impossible. She must be 70. The no mean. The silence that followed was deafening. The housekeeper, Daniel said. And even from a distance, I could hear the incredul and contempt in his voice. You're having an affair with the housekeeper. A girl young enough to be your daughter, Victoria. This is pathetic. Don't talk about her like that. Victoria's voice was loaded with fury. Maya is worth more than anyone in our pretentious social circles. She's genuine, kind, courageous. She's an opportunist, Daniel shouted. A gold digger who saw a vulnerable middle-aged woman. And the sound of a slap echoed. Victoria had hit him. Don't finish that sentence. Her voice was low. Dangerous. Maya doesn't know half my net worth. She doesn't want my money. She wants me. The person I am, not what I have. Something you never did. This is ridiculous, Daniel said. And now his voice had a cruel edge. You think this girl is in love with you? A 53-year-old woman? Please, Victoria. She's taking advantage and you're too foolish to see it. I couldn't listen anymore. I ran from the library up the stairs to my room, tears streaming down my face. Daniel's words echoed in my mind. Opportunist, gold digger. That's how he saw me. That's how the world would see us if our relationship came to light. 15 minutes later, Victoria knocked on my door. She entered without waiting for an answer and saw I was packing my backpack. What are you doing? She asked, alarmed. I'm leaving, I replied without looking at her. This whole thing is a mistake, Victoria. Daniel is right. No, he's not. She crossed the room quickly, taking my hand. He's angry and he's saying cruel things. Don't believe him. But he has a point. I turned to face her. Look at us, Victoria. You're a millionaire developer. I'm a housekeeper. 26 years age difference. Completely different worlds. How can this work? People will always think I'm with you for your money. I don't care what people think. Victoria held my face with both hands. I only care what you think. Are you with me for money? Of course not. I protested. I love you. Then that's all that matters. Maya, I knew this would be difficult. I knew we'd face judgment, criticism, doubts, but I also know what we have is real. And I won't let Daniel's poison destroy it. He's going to make everything harder now. I warn now that he knows. I know. But it also means I don't have to hide anymore. I'm going to accelerate the divorce process. I'm going to face the consequences. But please, her tears started falling now. Don't leave me. Not now. Not when I'm finally finding the courage to fight. I looked at her, this incredible woman who'd entered my life and turned everything upside down. I saw fear in her eyes, but also determination. She was willing to risk everything. Who was I not to do the same? Okay, I said. I'll stay, but I don't want to be your housekeeper anymore, Victoria. I can't keep pretending professionalism when all I want is to hold you. She nodded. I'll officially let you go tomorrow with a generous severance, excellent references. You can look for another job or you can let me help you get established. No strings, no debt. Just because I love you and I want you to be okay. Ines? I asked. We're going to have to be patient. The divorce will take months, maybe over a year. Daniel's going to make everything difficult, especially now that he's hurt and angry. But in the end, we'll be together. I promise. I kissed her then, a kiss full of promise and hope, but also fear and uncertainty. We were embarking on a difficult journey, swimming against the tide, defying social expectations and judgments. But for the first time in a long time, we both felt we were fighting for something worth it. The following months were the most challenging of my life. And I imagine of Victoria's too. As she'd predicted, Daniel made the divorce a pitched battle. He hired Seattle's best attorneys and was determined to make every step difficult. Victoria officially terminated my employment a week after the confrontation with 3 months' salary as severance and an impeccable letter of recommendation. I found a small apartment in Capitol Hill in an older building with character and got a job with a commercial cleaning company that serviced office buildings in the Loop. It was strange living away from the Madison Park mansion, away from Victoria. We saw each other when possible, quick lunches between her meetings, coffee in the late afternoon, weekends when Daniel was traveling, but it was never enough. I wanted to sleep beside her every night, wake up with her every morning, have the mundane ordinariness of shared daily life. Victoria was fighting her own battles. The divorce became news in Seattle's business circles. Speculation ran wild. Some said Daniel was having an affair, others that Victoria had a breakdown. Some rumors closer to truth whispered about an inappropriate relationship with a younger female employee. Lost 2 major clients this week, Victoria told me at one of our meetings. 7 months into the process, we were in her car, parked in a discreet spot near Millennium Park, stealing an hour together. Conservative developers who don't approve of a married woman seeking divorce. As if I'm the one breaking sacred vows and not just ending something that was already dead, I held her hand, interlacing our fingers. Do you regret it? She looked at me, and despite the exhaustion in her eyes, I also saw peace. Losing hypocritical clients, never finally having the courage to pursue my happiness. Never. Maya, these months have been hell. But for the first time in decades, when I look in the mirror, I recognize the woman I see. I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not hiding who I am. That's priceless. 11 months in, the divorce was finally nearing completion. Victoria had agreed to concede more than her lawyers recommended, several properties, a larger share of certain developments just to accelerate the process. Daniel, realizing he was fighting an already lost battle, finally accepted the terms. It'll be official next week, Victoria told me on a late-night phone call. Though separated, she and Daniel still lived in the same mansion for legal reasons, each in a different wing. 11 months and 19 days since I started this process. Feels like an eternity. And it feels like yesterday when I gave you that massage, I said, smiling at the memory. You were so tense, so afraid to admit what you wanted. And you were brave enough for both of us, Victoria replied. Maya, when this is officially over, when I'm legally free, will you still want me after everything I've put you through? All the waiting, all the uncertainty, Victoria, I said firmly. I loved you when you were my unreachable employer. I loved you when you were married and our future was uncertain. I love you now, waiting for us to finally have a real life together. None of that has changed. Nothing will change. I heard a sob on the other end of the line. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. And next week, when everything's finalized, we're going to start our real life. No hiding, no excuses, no fear. The week blurred by in equal parts anxiety and anticipation. Victoria kept me updated on every step, signatures here, filings there, final details closing out. Daniel, surprisingly civil in the end, seemed as ready as she was to move on. Friday afternoon my phone rang, and I knew from her voice, lighter, freer than I'd heard in months, what she would say. It's done, she breathed. It's finalized. I'm divorced. I'm free. Tears flooded my eyes. Is it true? Really over? Really over. Maya, can you come to the house? I want to see you, hold you, celebrate. Daniel's already moved out. Took his things. The house is empty for the first time in 26 years, and I want to fill it with you. I called an Uber and rode from Capitol Hill to Madison Park with my heart pounding. She was waiting at the door, and the sight of her stunned me. She looked younger, unburdened, jeans, a simple sweater, barefoot, hair down, smiling in a way that lit her whole face. I ran to her, and we wrapped each other up right there on the threshold. She laughed and cried at once, kissing my cheeks, my neck, my mouth. It's over. It's over. It's over, she kept repeating, like a spell. Now it's just us. Just us. We walked in hand, and the house felt different, lighter, less oppressive. She had already begun to change things, old photographs taken down, furniture rearranged, plants and color brought in. I want to transform this place, she said as we wandered. Or maybe sell it and start fresh. What do you think? I think that's your decision, I said. It's your house, your life. She stopped and turned to me. Our house. Our life. Maya, I'm not proposing, yet. It's too soon, and I want to do this right. But I am asking you to move in and build something real with me. If you want to. No pressure. My pulse thudded so loudly I was sure she could hear it. You're sure? I've never been more sure. Then yes, I said. Yes to living with you. Yes to building a life. Yes to all of it. That night, for the first time in months, we were together without guilt, without fear, without tomorrow's dread. It felt different, deeper, more connected, truer. We were finally free to be who we were, to love as we chose, to live as we wanted. The months that followed were about rebuilding and discovery. I sold my little Capitol Hill apartment and moved into the mansion, which we slowly turned into a home. Victoria scaled back, delegated more, and began choosing quality of life over relentless profit. I enrolled in night classes in business administration, not because she asked, but because I wanted to. There were judgments, of course. Some of her friends drifted. Certain relatives were unkind. In the business world, there were side glances, whispers, even a few lost contracts from conservative developers who disapproved. But support arrived from unexpected corners. Mrs. Whitaker, who'd known all along, became a confidant. Victoria's younger brother called to say he was proud of her for living her truth. And several clients, especially women entrepreneurs, admired her more for her courage. 18 months after that first massage that changed everything, we were having dinner at a quiet, elegant restaurant in River North. Victoria had been nervous all evening, talking too much, laughing a little too brightly. I knew something was coming, though I couldn't name it. When dessert arrived, she reached across the table and took my hand. We were in a private corner, but it was still a public gesture of affection, something we'd avoided early on out of fear, but now did naturally. Maya, she began, her voice trembling slightly. These 18 months have been the most challenging and simultaneously the happiest of my life. You taught me it's never too late to start over, to be authentic, to choose love over convenience. My heart started racing as she continued. I spent 53 years living for others' expectations, building a life that looked right on paper but was empty inside. And then you showed up with your genuine smile and pure heart and turned everything upside down. You showed me that true love doesn't follow social rules, doesn't respect age or class differences. True love simply is. Victoria pulled a small velvet box from her pocket and tears started falling from my eyes before she even opened it. So, Maya Alvarez, will you spend the rest of your life with me? Will you make me the happiest woman in the world and marry me? Inside the box were two simple but beautiful rings, white gold with small diamonds, delicate, elegant, perfect. Yes, I said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, yes, 1,000 times. Yes. Victoria placed the ring on my finger with trembling hands, and then I placed hers. We kissed right there in public, not caring about curious looks or judgments. We were two women in love, engaged, building a future together. The wedding happened 6 months later. An intimate ceremony in the mansion's garden that was now truly our home. Just 40. Continue Deo Pero. The wedding happened 6 months later. An intimate ceremony in the mansion's garden that was now truly our home. Just 40 guests. The people who truly mattered, who supported us, who celebrated our love. Mrs. Whitaker cried through the entire ceremony. Victoria's younger brother walked her down the aisle. And when we exchanged our vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Maya, you taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but choosing to do what's right despite the fear. Victoria said, holding my hands. You gave me not just love, but freedom. Freedom to be who I always was but was afraid to show. I promise to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you make me. I promise to support you, respect you, love you unconditionally. I promise that every morning you'll wake up knowing you're the most important person in my world. When my turn came, I could barely speak through the tears. Victoria, when I first walked into this house as your housekeeper, I was lost, broken, trying to rebuild a life that had been shattered. You showed me that sometimes we have to completely destroy what's broken to build something new and beautiful. Our story didn't follow the conventional script. We started in a way society calls inappropriate. We faced harsh judgments. We defied expectations. But every difficult moment was worth it because it brought me here to you. I promised to love you, not despite our differences, but because of them. I promise to stand by your side through every challenge that comes, and I promise never to let you forget how extraordinary you are. Our kiss as wives was met with applause, tears, and genuine celebration. 3 years have passed since that kiss. Victoria is now 56. I'm 30. She still runs her development company, but with a much healthier work-life balance. I graduated with my business degree and started working for a non-profit organization that helps domestic violence survivors rebuild their lives, something that makes my heart feel complete. We still face sideways glances sometimes. We still hear occasional cruel comments. But we also have a supportive community, solid love, and the certainty that we made the right choices. Victoria often jokes that she hired the best housekeeper in the world because I clean not just her house but her life. Removing all the falselessness, all the inauthenticity. Leaving only what was true and important. And I usually respond that she hired me to clean the house but ended up cleaning my soul, removing all the limiting beliefs about my worth, about what I deserved, about how big my life could be. Our story isn't perfect. It didn't follow the script society approves. It started in a complicated way, faced immense obstacles, challenged every convention, but it's our story, authentic and true. Last month, we celebrated our second wedding anniversary with a quiet dinner at home. As we sat on the terrace overlooking Lake Washington, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, Victoria turned to me with that soft smile I've come to know so well. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "The difficulty, the judgment, the battles we fought." I took her hand, bringing it to my lips. "Not for a single second." "You know what I regret?" "What?" "That I didn't give you that massage sooner?" I said, grinning. Victoria laughed. That genuine, joyful laugh that had become so much more frequent. "Well, I'm feeling a bit tense now, Mrs. Hartwell Alvarez. Think you could help with that?" "I thought you'd never ask," I replied, standing and pulling her to her feet. As we walked inside hand in hand, I reflected on how far we'd come. From that charged moment in her bedroom when everything changed through months of uncertainty and pain to this life we'd built together, authentic, messy, beautiful, and entirely ours. Victoria once told me she'd spent 53 years living for everyone else and only the last few years living for herself. Now, as we climb the stairs together, anticipating the evening ahead, I understand what she meant. We're not living for society's approval or following someone else's rules. We're simply living, loving each other fully, supporting each other completely, and being exactly who we are. And when Victoria holds me every night before sleep, when we wake up together every morning, when we share coffee and dreams and fears and joys, I know that every difficult moment was worth it. Because true love, the kind that transforms, that liberates, that makes us the best version of ourselves. That kind of love is worth any price. And we paid that price willingly, knowing that what we received in return is infinitely more valuable. The chance to live authentically. Love completely and be truly happy. Sometimes people ask us how we made it work despite the odds. Victoria usually says it's because we chose each other every single day, even when it would have been easier to walk away. I say it's because we were brave enough to believe that love doesn't have to make sense to everyone else. It only has to make sense to us. The truth is probably somewhere in between. What I know for certain is this. That rainy Monday morning when I walked into Victoria's bedroom, when our eyes met and everything shifted. When I placed my hands on her shoulders and both our lives changed forever. That was the moment I started truly living. Not just existing, not just surviving, but living with passion and purpose and a love so deep it transformed everything it touched. 3 years later, when Victoria draws me in and breathes, "I love you," against my skin, when we keep weaving new memories inside this house that's become our refuge. Building a life that's unconventional, beautiful, and unmistakably ours, I wouldn't change a thing. The housekeeper and the millionaire. An unlikely love that shattered expectations. A relationship that taught us both it's never too late to choose yourself, to choose love, to choose honesty over convenience. This is our story, and it's only just beginning. If this story moved you, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like. Tell me in the comments, Do you believe love can overcome any barrier? Do you have a story like this of your own? Don't miss the next emotional chapters, new episodes every week about love that defies expectations and changes lives. Hit subscribe now.